Hi, so today Hi everyone, so my name is Sydney and today I'm going to be telling you about the 5 types of Oh, hello. Hi, my name is Sydney and today I'm going to be telling you about the 5 types of bones, how to tell them apart, and different examples of each. I tend to talk really fast, so if you have any trouble understanding, feel free to pause the video and look at it at your own speed. A lot of the information I'm sure you won't need to know, but it's really useful to have. Just as a disclaimer, I am not an artist, so my diagrams are really, really bad, and I am not an expert on this at all. I am still learning about this, so please take everything with a grain of salt, and if you have any comments or concerns, please feel free to let me know. Yeah, okay, let's get started. Alright, so we've got your 5 types of bones. You've got your long bone, your short bone, your sesamoid bone, your flat bone, and your irregular bone. And your irregular bone really doesn't fit into the other categories, which is why it's called the irregular bone. So we're going to jump right into the long bone. Now here's a few facts to start you off. It's a very hard and dense bone, and they provide 3 major functions, which is strength, structure, and mobility. Now you can kind of think about your femur as an example. It's the longest and the strongest bone in your body, and it has to provide your body with the strength and structure it needs to hold up the rest of the body. It also provides mobility. It's in your legs and it helps you move around. Okay, so here we have the anatomy of the long bone. And you can see it's separated into 3 different parts. You have the epiphysis, the diaphysis, and then another epiphysis. So we'll go ahead and get into the different parts. So first you have the epiphyseal line, which is right here. Okay, and then you have the cancellous bone, which is sort of the spongy stuff you see in the middle there. And then you have the periosteum. Okay, then you have the medullary cavity. Then you have the compact bone here. Then you have your cortex. Then you have your epiphyseal plate, which you can see is on the bottom of the epiphysis. And then you have your cartilage, which is on the very bottom of the bone. So you can see where I erased a little bit on the whiteboard here, just because I want to show you that this is where your yellow marrow is found in your bone. And this is all your red bone marrow. And the red is where your red blood cells are produced. The yellow is more fatty storage. These are very important things you should know, as they'll appear on most tests about bones in most biology classes. So the last thing I think you should know about the long bone is the growth of a long bone. Now the HGH, which is the human growth hormone, stimulates the growth in long bones. And this hormone is produced in the pituitary gland, which is in your brain. So without this bone, your long bones aren't going to grow long. They're not going to grow strong, and you need it for the growth of your body. So now we're into the short bone. And the short bone has a few major functions, which is to provide support and structure. And it does this with little to no movement in the body. So here's a very crude diagram of your hand, just to show you where your carpals are. So they are actually right here. Okay, now these down here are your metacarpals, and the rest are your phalanges, and these are not short bones, so we're not even going to worry about them. I just thought I'd let you know where they are. Now you notice that they're right underneath these 2 bones here. So this one here is your ulna, and this one is your radius. And they are underneath those, and those aren't short bones as well, so we're not going to get into that anymore. Alright? So I highlighted a few different types of bones that I thought you should know in the carpals. So the first one is this little red one here, and that is called the trapezoid bone. And you can tell that easily by the shape, as it looks like a trapezoid. The second one is the scaphoid bone. Now this one's really important to know because it's the one that people break the most when they fall, when they put their hand straight down. So the last one is the pisiform, and it's on the side there, and they're all very important bones that you should know. They're very simple, and they're easy to remember. Okay, so the next bone we're going to go into is the sesamoid bone. I'm not sure if you guys can read this, but I tried to write it out as neat as possible so you can copy this into your notes. So a sesamoid bone is a small independent bone or bony nodule developed into a tendon where it passes over an angular structure, typically in the hands and feet. So now I'm going to go into some things you should know about the sesamoid bone. The first thing is that it serves to hold the tendon slightly further away from the joint to increase movement. Next is that they have very limited blood supply. And finally, they're very difficult to heal. Okay, so here's a really simple diagram of your knee, which includes the patella, which is your sesamoid bone. So it's right here, and it's in blue. That's all your ligaments and tendons. So the patella here is actually wrapped up in a tendon. So, yeah. I outlined a couple other important things you should probably know, which is your patellar ligament, okay? Your fibula, which is right behind, and your tibia. So you also notice that the stuff that isn't colored in is your bone. So injuries to the sesamoid bones can occur to the bone itself, the tendons, or the surrounding tissue around the joint. And they can occur by putting too much pressure on the joint with little to no rest. So that can be anything from running, basketball, soccer, ballet, whatever you can think of really. Just make sure you're getting the proper rest and make sure you're not overdoing yourself. So now we're moving into the flat bone, and I outlined a few important facts that I thought you should know. So, in an adult, most red blood cells are formed in flat bones. The function of a flat bone is to protect internal organs. So your skull, which is a flat bone, protects your brain, and the sternum, which is also a flat bone, protects your heart and lungs, for example. And also large areas of attachment for muscle. So flat bones are made up of a layer of spongy bone between two thin layers of compact bone. And they have a flat shape, they aren't round. And flat bones have marrow, but they don't have a bone marrow cavity. So I drew out another really bad diagram just to kind of show you guys where the flat bones are. So here's the frontal bone in the skull, your parietal bone, your temporal bone, and you can kind of tell that because it's at your temples, and then your occipital bone. So these kind of all form together to make your skull and protect your brain. So you can probably guess this fact, but injuring a flat bone can be very dangerous since they protect your major organs. So imagine fracturing your skull and suffering from permanent brain damage, or your sternum and it puncturing your heart or your lungs. It could be very serious, and you could potentially die from these injuries. So next we're going to move into the irregular bone. So the irregular bone serves to protect the nervous tissue. So you can think about how your vertebrae protects your spinal cord. It's a complicated shape due to the functions they fulfill within the body. And it's composed of thin layers of compact bone surrounding a spongy interior. So here's a very simple diagram of a vertebrae just to give you an example. I labeled a few important parts you should probably know. So you have your body, your vertebral foramen, your pedicle, and your spinous process. There's a lot of other parts that go in this, so just be aware of that. These are just a few that are very important. You can see the irregular shape of the vertebrae. Hence, if you listen to the beginning of the video, I explained that the irregular bone is called irregular because of its shape, because it doesn't fit into the other categories. So an example of an injury to your irregular bone would be your vertebrae. And this can be a very serious injury as it can lead to paralysis, which could lead you in a wheelchair, which would be permanent paralysis, or you could serve temporary paralysis, which would land you in the hospital for a very long time. I can't speak for all irregular bones, as some are more dangerous than others, but you should definitely be careful when doing activities so you don't injure your irregular bone, especially your spine. So a really common question about the 5 types of bones is, how do you tell them apart? And the answer to this question is through shape and function. So the shape of the bone is really, really simple to understand. Each of the 5 bones has a different shape and different characteristics to them. So that's how you tell that apart. And then the function. So if you look further into the bones, you can see that they each have different functions. And I've explained those all throughout the beginning of the video if you want to take a look at that. Feel free to rewind and rewatch whatever you need to. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found it really helpful. Feel free to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. See you guys next time.